Official. Now the Warriors just inbound, and that's it. There's a new NBA champion, and it's a team from Toronto, Canada.
This moment started the biggest modern-day rivalry in the NBA today. And you might be thinking, how? This is just footage of the Raptors winning in 2019. This moment started a butterfly effect of the Warriors and Grizzlies rivalry. Let me explain. Before Ja Morant and Dillon Brooks were in the league, the Memphis Grizzlies lost to the Golden State Warriors in 2015 in the second round of the playoffs. On that team was a 31-year-old Andre Iguodala, who in a couple weeks later would win the Finals MVP. Fast forward 4 years later, on June 30th, 2019, the Warriors would trade him to none other but the Memphis Grizzlies in order to clear cap space for the signing trade of D'Angelo Russell, a solid NBA veteran, to guide a young Grizzlies team featuring Dillon Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Ja Morant, the number 2 pick they drafted only 10 days before trading for Iguodala. The only problem is, Iguodala had no interest in playing for the team. Well, according to reports that is. The Grizzlies and Iguodala mutually agreed that he would not join the team as they were trying to find him a trade partner. Word around the league is that the 38-year-old Iguodala wanted to play for a championship contending team rather than the team currently rebuilding. Sources say he was prepared to sit out the rest of the season if he wasn't traded to one of the teams he desired. While sitting out, Dillon Brooks and Ja Morant clearly weren't happy about Iguodala not playing for the team and sitting out. Steph Curry saw the disrespect the Grizzlies were showing to Iguodala, so he decided to post an Instagram story of Iggy holding the championship trophy with the hush emoji, which prompted Ja Morant responding on Twitter with Kevin Durant holding up the Finals MVP trophy with a shrug emoji and the shushing emoji. Can you feel the tensions brewing? Then on February 5th, 2020, the Grizzlies agreed to send Iguodala to join Jimmy Butler in the Miami Heat, which quickly led to a response from Ja and Brooks in the media.
Is there any sense of relief with the Iggy situation being resolved now?
I didn't care after that. That's in the past. It's over with. And we're going to play with the players that's on the floor. We handle the business, so we're fine.
Are you glad that there's at least, there's finally a resolution to that?
Yeah, for sure. Now we have a player that we're getting that actually wants to play with us, and things were good. And we can keep the ball rolling.
The Heat would eventually go on to the NBA Finals, but lose to the Los Angeles Lakers. Fast forward to next season, the Warriors would struggle throughout the regular season due to injuries and experience with young players. The Warriors would end up being the 8th seed, which meant they had to compete in the play-in tournament to have a chance to compete in the playoff. Their first matchup would be against an injury-riddled team, the defending champions Los Angeles Lakers. The Warriors would go on to lose 103-100, but they still had another chance of making the playoffs because they were the 8th seed. Their opponents, the 9th seeded Memphis Grizzlies, fresh off beating the 10th seed San Antonio Spurs. Curry would score 39 points for the Warriors while playing 47 minutes, but the Grizzlies would go on to win 117-112 in overtime on the back of Ja Morant, who would end the game with 35 points. Again, the Warriors would miss the playoffs for the second year in a row. After the loss, Steph Curry would have this to say to the media.
Now, a new experience for me, Draymond alone. Try to make the most of it. Come back, bottle this up, everybody make the right strides, take advantage of the summer, and you don't want to see us next year.
On the East Coast, fresh off their trip to the finals last year, the 6th-seeded Miami Heat prepares to face off against the 3rd-seed Milwaukee Bucks, where the Bucks would sweep the Heat and move on to the playoffs and eventually win the championship. Iguodala would end the series scoring 3.8 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 1.3 assists. After the playoff disappointment, the Miami Heat would decline Iguodala's $15 million team option, which would make him a free agent entering the next season. 5 days later, Iguodala would sign a 1-year veteran minimum contract to return to the Golden State Warriors. Throughout the course of the 2021-22 season, the Warriors would play the Grizzlies 4 times. The Grizzlies would beat them 3 times, while also building the reputation of a team that would talk trash. On February 2nd, 2022, the Grizzlies would face off the Knicks, where Desmond Baines and Julius Randle would get in a scuffle. That altercation led to Ja Morant saying these famous words in the press conference.
You bring it and we on that, that's cool. But
What we look for.
that's what you saw happen. You saw
Ain't no running in the L, man. We climb up the chimney.
yeah, for sure.
We ain't ducking no
It's fun,
smoke,
man.
man. We gonna let everybody know we here. We gonna play hard, trying to get a win. And if you don't like it, oh well.
On March 28, 2022, in one of the Grizzlies and Warriors matchups, Iguodala would play in Memphis, and the fans would make sure to let him hear it.
You got to be ready to bang with these guys down low. The little big man is GP2. Andre Iguodala's in the game.
After the Grizzlies went on to win by 28 points, Dillon Brooks had some words for Iguodala after the game.
Developed a lot, and we all had the vision and he didn't, which is perfect. You know, send him back to the Warriors and let him, you know, do his thing over there.
Jaren Jackson Jr. would also tweet strength in numbers after the game, the famous playoff slogan the Warriors would use during their championship runs. Fast forward to the end of the year, where the Grizzlies would finish their season with a 56-26 record to become the 2nd seed, while the Warriors would end with a 53-29 record and become the 3rd seed. The Warriors would easily beat a shorthanded Denver Nuggets team in 5 games with their new death lineup, and the Grizzlies would beat a very inexperienced Minnesota Timberwolves. This would lead the two teams to colliding into the Western Conference semifinals matchup. With less than 2 minutes left in the first half, Draymond Green would get a flagrant 2 foul for hitting Brandon Clark to the face and pulling his jersey while in the air, which means he'd get an automatic ejection from the game. Instead of yelling at the refs, he would celebrate the ejection by running around on the court. But despite his ejection, the Warriors would still go on to win the game, with a clutch 3 by Klay Thompson and a timely block by Steph Curry. Ja Morant had a chance to change the outcome, but he missed a close layup at the buzzer. In the first quarter on a fast break, Gary Payton Jr. would go up for a layup, and Dillon Brooks would smack Payton mid-air, causing Payton to land awkwardly. Payton would leave the game early with a fractured left elbow and would not return for the rest of the series. Brooks would also be assessed with a flagrant 2 call, an automatic ejection from the game. A couple of game time seconds later, Draymond Green would leave the game early due to getting elbowed in the face by Xavier Tillman. No one was ejected because there was no foul call on the play. Draymond would later return to the game, but while walking back to the locker room, he left a message for the fan. He would soon explain his reasoning of why he did so.
If you're gonna boot somebody who get elbowed in the eye and face running on blood, you should get flipped off. So I'll take the fine, I'll go do an appearance and make up the money. You're gonna boot someone that get elbowed in the eye and blood running down your face? I could have had a concussion or anything. So if they're gonna be that nasty, I can be nasty too.
The Grizzlies would go on to win and tie the series. Ja Morant would finish the game scoring 47 points with 8 rebounds and 8 assists, while making Jordan Poole play Twister mid-game and hitting clutch buckets. After the game, head coach Steve Kerr says Dillon Brooks broke the code.
Playoff basketball it's supposed to be physical. You know, everybody's going to compete, everybody's going to fight for everything, but there's a code that players follow, where you never put a guy's season/career in jeopardy by taking somebody out in midair. He broke the code. Dillon Brooks broke the code.
2 days after Game 2, the NBA would announce they would suspend Dillon Brooks for Game 3 for his flagrant foul on Gary Payton II. In the fourth quarter of Game 3, Ja Morant would get injured on this supposed play when Jordan Poole would grab his knee. He would leave the game early and not return. The Warriors would dominate the Grizzlies in Game 3, winning 142-112. But after the game, head coach Taylor Jenkins would discuss the play and would blame Jordan Poole for the injury.
Yeah, he's getting evaluated now, nothing further. I mean, we just watched the replay. He was going after a dribble, and Jordan Poole actually grabbed his knee and yanked it, which kind of triggered.
The Grizzlies would later request the NBA to look over the play for a potential suspension on Poole, but the league decided that no further action would be taken. Ja Morant would tweet "broke the code" after the game, throwing a shot with Steve Kerr said after Game 2. Ja Morant would later miss Game 4 and the rest of the series due to a bone bruise in his knee. Despite Ja Morant's absence, the Grizzlies kept a close game against the Warriors, but with Steph Curry finishing with 32 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists, and Draymond Green coming up clutch with a block on Jaren Jackson Jr., the Warriors were able to win and go up 3-1 on the series. Before Game 5 started, it was reported that Steph Curry and the Warriors' game plan for the game was to whoop that trick.
I also asked Stephen Curry what the plan was tonight, and he just turned around and looked at me and said, "Whoop that trick. That is our game plan."
The title of a song the Grizzlies would play at their games. And Steph Curry didn't lie, because the Warriors were definitely dancing and laughing along to the Memphis crowd as the Grizzlies would win the game 134-95. At one point, the Warriors were down 46 points with Ja Morant not even playing. The loss was the 5th largest playoff loss in Warriors franchise history, but despite the Warriors losing in such fashion, they still look to be in good spirits going into Game 6.
They not gonna whoop that trick alone. We're gonna whoop that trick together if we're gonna whoop that trick. You know, we gotta.
Coming off a beating in Game 5, the Warriors woke up for this game, where Game 6 Klay would finish with a team-high 30 points with 8 made threes, and Dillon Brooks would finish with 30 points. Yes, Dillon Brooks scored 30 points in the playoff game. You heard me right. But the Warriors would win the series and advance to the Western Conference Finals. Jordan Poole would mock Ja Morant's gritty after beating them. In his post-game interview, Dillon Brooks would also call the Warriors old.
You know, we're young and they're getting old, so they know we're coming every single year. And that's the way I play. I play for the respect.
The Warriors would go on to beat the Dallas Mavericks in the conference finals. But after Game 3, Ja Morant would co-sign a tweet stating if the Grizzlies were healthy, they would have beaten the Warriors. The Warriors would end up going to the finals and playing the Boston Celtics, where they would beat them and become NBA champions once again. Right after winning a championship, Klay Thompson would call Jaren Jackson Jr. a bum for the tweet he made earlier on in the year.
There was this one player on the Grizzlies who tweeted strength in numbers after they beat us in the regular season, and it pissed me off so much. I can't wait to retweet that thing. Freaking bum.
Which prompted Ja Morant to quote tweet "got a lot of real estate" to a tweet suggesting that the Grizzlies are living in the Warriors' mind. Draymond Green would reply to Morant saying, "We traded that real estate," and Ja Morant, "the property was higher in Boston," which led to a fan wanting a Warriors versus Grizzlies matchup on Christmas in San Francisco. Ja Morant replied wanting to play the Warriors on Christmas in Memphis, but Draymond Green replied, "The champs play out home, young, Christmas Day," which Ja Morant replied, "I'm coming to you then. Tell them book that. I'm on your block." Then on August 13th, 2022, the NBA would announce that the Grizzlies and Warriors would play on Christmas Day, which was highly approved by Ja and Draymond themselves. Throughout the offseason, the Warriors would continue to diss the Grizzlies as they would dance to "Whoop That Trick" as they celebrated their championship. At a golf event, Steph Curry would kick a Grizzlies ball thrown to him by a fan. Then Draymond Green would say the Mavericks were better than the Grizzlies on their playoff run.
Dallas is a threat. Can't quite say they're a problem yet, but they are 100% a big threat. Memphis is a little threat. Dallas is a big threat.
Now we move on to the next season, where we fast forward to Christmas Day, where the Grizzlies and Warriors would match up for the first time since the playoff. Coming into the game, the Warriors are struggling heavily on the road with a 16-18 record. Steph Curry would also not play in this game due to a shoulder injury, while the Grizzlies would come into this game with a 20-12 record, while still keeping up their trash-talking reputation, which took an even bigger leap when a couple of days before the game, Ja Morant would say some infamous words.
Who do you look at around the league as you're studying and say, we're going to have to run through them?
Celtics.
No one in the West?
Nah, I'm fine in the West.
This was wild.
Morant would finish with 36 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists, and he would also baptize Anthony Lamb. But they would still go on to lose to the Warriors, while Jordan Poole would lead the team in scoring, finishing with 32 points. But it would be Klay Thompson and Draymond Green letting the Grizzlies hear it the most.
For Draymond Green.
Great job of helping and blocking the defense in midair to tell him which way to finish. It's spectacular.
At home. At this pace.
Klay Thompson will also respond to Dillon Brooks' old comments.
Man, they was talking about dynasty and all that. You can't talk dynasty when you haven't won before. I don't think people realize how hard that is, the commitment and sacrifice it takes.
Exactly 1 month later, the two teams would match up again, and history would repeat itself as the Warriors would win a close game, with Jordan Poole making the game-winning layup. Curry would be ejected from the game because he would throw his mouthpiece because of Jordan Poole's shot selection. On February 23rd, Ja Morant doubled down on being fine in the West at All-Star break.
Raise your hand if you're fine in the West.
Then on March 3rd, Dillon Brooks would come out and say he doesn't like the Warriors or Draymond Green. He'd also say his game is cool. March 8th, 5 days after Brooks' comments, Draymond Green would respond to him on his podcast.
If you ever wondered why the Memphis Grizzlies is not ready to compete for a championship, look no further than this idiot right here. They're actually depending on this guy to help them win a championship. The dynasty starts after you, not with you. And that's just a fact.
The next day on March 9th, the Grizzlies would play the Warriors in Memphis without Ja Morant, who was suspended for showing a gun on IG Live. The Grizzlies would beat the Warriors for the first time this season, and of course, Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks would have their moment.
Oh, they're talking. They're discussing the podcast. Green won't have any of it, and Brooks wants to try to light the fire. A A 17-4 Memphis Grizzly run.
Oh, hey, both of them kept their cool.
Jared, he said, I'm not subscribing to your podcast.
And after the game, Brooks would have more words for Green and the Warriors.
You know, keep that mic. You better have the mic than hooping. You know what I'm saying? So keep doing this podcast, keep blogging.
Impressive showing tonight.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. You should give the mic to Draymond.
Actually listen to that to the 2 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, my teammates showed me. I don't really watch
right,
those
you're not
things.
on social media.
You know what I mean? Yeah, they showed me. And then, I watched the whole thing. It was some funny stuff, I'm not a championship player. I feel like my stuff that I said was facts. And we'll see at the end of the year what they do with him. I ain't out there, getting physical altercations with my teammates.
Draymond will also share some thoughts about Brooks and the Grizzlies after the game.
Because you have to, one team has to win, and then another team has to win. Then, that's what creates a rivalry. Not because one team gets up for you and talk like they can beat you and then not. That doesn't create a rivalry. Rivalries are created by you win, I win. And clearly, we won 4 times, and I think their organization has 0 championships.
March 18th, for the final time this season, the Grizzlies would play the Warriors. John Morant would be absent due to suspension in this game as well, but it wouldn't matter, as the Grizzlies again would beat the Warriors, as they tied the season series at 2-2. Jaren Jackson Jr. would finish with 31 points, as Curry, Thompson, and Draymond Green would only score 41 points combined, but their poor performance didn't stop them from talking trash to the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies and Warriors would both make the playoffs, where the Warriors would lose in the Western Conference semifinals to the Lakers in 6 games, but beat the Sacramento Kings in 7 games in round 1, while the Grizzlies would get humbled by the Lakers in 6 games. After the series, Brooks would ask the Grizzlies for a bigger role on the team, opposed to just being a 3-and-D player, but the Grizzlies would inform him that they wouldn't take him back under any circumstances. Into the offseason, Draymond Green would earn a 4-year, $100 million contract with the Warriors, but later down free agency, Dillon Brooks would sign a 4-year, $80 million contract with the Houston Rockets. Even if Brooks is gone from the Grizzlies, something tells me that this rivalry will still go on, especially since the Grizzlies acquired a new defensive specialist in Marcus Smart for the Steph Curry assignment.